Everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the DRF Saturday Race of the Day, which is the feature race at Keeneland. Race 9 on their Saturday card is the Grade 2 Raven Run. This one going the 7 furlong distance for the 3-year-old fillies. And Mike, a really intriguing field here. A large one. We've got 3 also eligibles, but 12 in the main body of the field. Some horses with prior graded stakes credentials, horses turning back in distance, some from the Kentucky Oaks Trail earlier this year. The one to beat, and as you can see on the morning line, she's the favorite. The number 9 Ragtime. I mean, she's done nothing wrong across her 4 career starts, but they're not handing her this race.
Nah, it's a pretty good field. Yeah, she's to me, she's clearly the horse to beat. Her overall form is excellent, but there's a lot going on outside of your morning line favorite in here. As you mentioned, it feels like, to me anyway, the most interesting horses are those turnbacks, the horses coming back for their first start since the Kentucky Oaks.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Raven Run, because it does feel like there's quite a bit of speed signed on here. The number 7 Maida, she's a horse who's shown a lot of early speed on her prior starts in Maryland and Delaware. The number 1 Delightful Claire, kind of her hand might be forced from an inside post position if she breaks cleanly here. And Mike, she's not shown leading on the pace projector, but the number 8 Usha seems like a horse that could be quick enough to get to the front end if they want it, but being drawn outside of some of those main pace rivals, maybe they will take her back slightly.
Yeah, at least IRAD has options with the 8. That's right. She's plenty fast enough if they wanted to be on the lead with her, but IRAD's got options with her. It does feel like Delightful Claire. I just see her as only really having one way to go here from the rail, David. And I'm assuming they'll be sending here, and we'll see how fast they make her go.
With this being the DRF race of the day, you can get free past performances for this race as well as every single race of the day. Just go to the race of the day page at DRF.com and you can access free all access, PPs, Classic, Formulator, and Timeform US. Let's go through this large field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1 Delightful Claire, one of those potential pace players. And she's another relatively lightly raced option in here, like your morning line favorite Ragtime, a horse who was very impressive when she broke her maiden at Saratoga 3 starts back, got a 95 buyer for that near 10-length victory going this 7-furlong distance. She's tried graded stakes company a couple of times since then, Mike, and you could say she had minor excuses. The start didn't really work out for her in the prior race. She was farther back than she wanted to be. And last time, I know the pace doesn't look that fast in the dogwood, but it was a race that was dominated by closers.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's the race that I feel like you might want to be a little lenient for. I mean, the prior race, she did stumble at the start. Maybe that's enough of an excuse. As it turns out, the long shot winner of that race has actually turned out to be pretty good. So It's not as disappointing a performance as it seemed like at the time, maybe. I still don't know how good she is, David. I mean, to me, she's run 4 times. I like one of her races. The other 3, I do not like at all. But she's 10-1 on the line, and I do think she's the speed of the speed in here.
Yeah, that one race you like, and I agree. It was a really good effort. It's come back to be proven that buyer speed figure, the 95, is legitimized by runback. So if she can get back to that, she's a player in here. We'll see if she can. The number 2, Vixen, is just a total wild card in this race, trying the dirt for the first time. She's a pretty good turf horse, knocking heads against her stablemate Nitrogen earlier this year. She just settled for Meyer awards in a series of stakes tries recently. So I get why Cassie's going to experiment with a surface switch. She's not going to win the grade 1 races on the turf. I think that's been proven at this point. Her sire Vacoma can get runners to go on either surface, but on the dam side, Mike, I do see a little more turf.
Yeah, me too. I feel like she's supposed to be a turf horse. I like you, I guess I understand why they want to try to shake her up a little bit. To me, she just never really turned out to be as good at least as I thought she was going to be. I really liked her last year, and I don't know, man. She just hasn't turned out to be as good on turf as I thought she was going to be. So I get their thinking here. I still don't like her in this race.
The number 3, Strong State, comes off a 2nd place finish to the likely favorite in here, Ragtime, in her last start, the grade 3 Dogwood, going this distance at Churchill Downs. And that was probably the best performance that we've seen from Strong State so far, Mike. But as I said earlier, that was a race where it was dominated, the exact at least, by a couple of closers. And Strong State just got outclosed by Ragtime through the final quarter mile of that race. She spun a little wide off the turn, but it just never looked like she was really going to win once Ragtime hit top gear. So she's going to have to run faster if she's going to turn the tables on that foe. Seems like a minor award might be her ceiling in this spot.
Agree with all that stuff. I'm a big fan of Strong State. I do think she's an underrated horse, but she had her chance last time. It just really wasn't good enough. I can see her maybe getting a little bit of a pace setup here and come running along to get a piece of this thing, but I wouldn't use her on top.
The number 4 volleyball princess has been a bit of an overachiever during her career. She scored an upset going all the way back to the Ruthless at Aqueduct last winter. And while she hasn't visited the winner's circle since then, she's outrun her odds on a couple of occasions, including last time when she was second to the good older mare, Mystic Lake, but never really was a serious threat to that foe at Parks. And she's going to have to run a lot faster to contend with this group.
Just looks like a really tough spot for her. I mean, she's fine. She's run some nice races. She looks like she's in probably a little bit over her head against fillies like this. But if you do find something to like about her, she's going to be a big price.
Speaking of overachievers, that's definitely the case for the number 5, Omen Joy, a horse who's won 5 races in a row. Took her a few starts to break her maiden, but when she finally did so, she's reeled off these 5 consecutive victories, the last 4 in stakes company. She stepped up against a graded stakes company, which is significant for this California bred who's really been moving up in class over the course of her last several starts. And we'll take a look at this most recent win in the Torrey Pines. Now, this was going a 2-turn mile, but she's been just fine sprinting in the past, so I don't mind her turning back a little bit. And Mike, if she repeats a performance like this, I guess she's got a chance to get a piece, and she just has been on this upward trajectory for the past several months.
Yeah, and I would argue that cutting back might actually be better for her anyway. I mean, I know that was the fastest race of her life that we just watched right there, the 2-turn mile. I prefer her races going shorter, and you're right. Maybe she just gets another good trip in this race and comes running at the end. You know, I'm not going to knock her, David, because she's on a really good run right now, and she's probably going to be a price in here, but I just thought she might be in a little bit too tough here.
The number 6, Reputation, is a horse who faced older rivals last time in the Princess Rooney down at Gulfstream. She was beaten by Hall and Ice, who's a pretty good rider for the Safi Joseph barn at that graded stakes level. She was impressive when she won 2 back at Colonial Downs. Don't think she was beating the toughest field that day. Some of the rivals in behind her really haven't gone on since doing some nice things during their 2-year-olds or early 3-year-old seasons. So she's facing a tougher group of 3-year-olds here, Mike, and she's another one that just has to get a little faster.
Yeah, those 3 wins earlier this year were fine. And, you know, she was pretty convincing in all of them, and she was certainly taking steps forward along the way. Boy, they gave her a real test last time, David. I don't know about you, but I didn't think that she ran well in that race at all, and it didn't make me want to bet her back in here.
The number 7, Maida, has reeled off 3 consecutive blowout victories in the Mid-Atlantic region, 2 at Laurel and 1 at Delaware. We'll take a look at the most recent of those performances when she won the Weather Vane against fellow 3-year-old fillies at Laurel. And she won this race very easily. Don't think there was a whole lot behind her. One of those rivals that I was mentioning, the horse we just talked about, Reputation, beat 2 back at Colonial, GW's girl. She's the horse who's finishing second in this race, and one that just hasn't really gone on since doing some nice things earlier in there at Oaklawn Park. So I'm not sure what was really behind Maida this day, Mike, but this particular race did get a nice 89 buyer. If you look at the Timeform US past performances, that number is even higher, one of the highest numbers any of these fillies have earned in this field. It's just a big step up in class for her.
Yeah, definitely a wild card in this race. So, I mean, we're going to find out a lot about her in this race, I think, David. I mean, she's been very impressive in all 3 of those wins. It seems like it's coming against, you know, inferior competition by quite a bit. And so we'll see how good she actually is. We're going to find out a lot here, but I'm not taking anything away from her. I like all 3 of her wins.
The number 8, Usha, is another horse with plenty of early speed, and she's used it to win a couple of starts recently at Del Mar. We'll take a look at the last of those when she won going 6.5 furlongs against first level allowance condition in early September. And Mike, they got her a little bit off the pace 2 back when she broke her maiden at Del Mar. In this race, they just used her speed from an inside post. They opened up on the turn, and nobody could stick with her through the late stages of this race. It just feels like she has transformed into a completely different horse since she's returned from this layoff for trainer Bob Baffert, from the horse that she was during her 2-year-old season when it seemed like she didn't want to run much farther than a half mile. Maybe the Lasix had something to do with that in the last couple of races, but she can't use that medication here.
Yeah, I think that would be the main concern that I would have with her too, Dave, because you're right. I mean, as a 2-year-old, she was plenty fast. She just wasn't that good. And even when Baffert shipped her the one time to New York to face fellow New York bred, she just didn't run that well in that race at a short price. But man, she's come back as a totally different horse this summer. You know, you just have to wonder how much Lasix had to do with that, or maybe it was just something else. She's grown up a little bit and gotten better, but she's been very impressive in those 2 wins. And if she can transfer that form here and do it without Lasix, she can win this race.
Up next is the likely favorite, the number 9, Ragtime, who's done very little wrong in her career. I mean, she came out basically as a finished product when she made her debut at Saratoga back in early June. She was professional in victory that day, and it's been the same story in 3 starts since then. We'll take a look at the only defeat when she just got nailed on the wire in the Grade 1 test, but she ran really well on this occasion, just got beat by a horse who basically took advantage of race flow and Keeneland, who made the last move in a race where I think it did, but wanted to make the last move as the pace came apart. But Ragtime followed up this narrow defeat with a good-looking victory in the Dogwood, going the same 7 furlong distance at Churchill last time. I guess my question for you, Mike, is these last couple of races, when you watch them, they kind of fell apart. The paces don't look that fast on paper. Was she with the race flow and flattered a little bit by the way those races were run, or is she just better than those horses?
I think maybe both things could be true. Listen, as a favorite in a race like this where there's other really good horses, I think you do want to sort of take positions like the one that you're laying out there, David, where she's sort of taking advantage of pace scenarios, and maybe that won't happen this time. The flip side of that is, again, we just watched the test, and I know that the winner, stumbled badly at the start of that race, but your other point's very well taken in there, that this horse made the first move. It was a wide move, and that was just a really tough beat in the, the major race for this division all year long. She just ran great in there, and I know her figure regressed last time. I know there was some pace for her to come after in there. But it's not like Ragtime got a perfect trip in that race. She didn't get out of the gate that well. She had a little bit of traffic in the upper stretches, so it had to force her way out into the clear. And once she saw daylight, she crushed that field. I don't know. I just thought she was way better than those horses. And I think she's going to be really hard for this field to beat right back.
We mentioned at the top of this preview that there are some interesting turnbacks in this race, and they're all drawn towards the outside of the starting gate. The number 10, Simply Joking, is a horse who was on the Kentucky Oaks trail earlier this year, actually ran the Kentucky Oaks, didn't do so well in there, tried to show speed and faded. But Mike, I always had the feeling watching her progress through the Oaks races that they kind of had to go 2 turns at that point in time, but I would be interested in her when she did eventually get an opportunity to turn back in distance, because she showed a lot of speed early on, didn't even break that well in her debut race when they put her in a stakes race right from the start, and she got the job done sort of in spite of herself, and she got some nice trips after that. But I think cutting back in distance could work for her. We should mention she is coming back for a new barn, Michael McCarthy. She's been training in Southern California for this, and I've watched a couple of the recent workouts, and she looks pretty impressive.
They look pretty good on paper, too. It looks like she's training up a storm coming into this thing, and she's cut out to be a nice horse anyway. I know that, she ran really well in stakes races going longer earlier this year. I didn't really love either of those races. I really like her a lot more going shorter. The layoff is a little bit of a concern for me. I wonder if we're going to get, her, if she's going to be able to move forward enough to win this race in her first start back off of a pretty long break, but I'm glad they're sprinting her. I think she's talented enough to beat these horses. I do want to wait and see what kind of price she goes off at.
Another filly who made her most recent start in the Kentucky Oaks and will be turning back off the layoff is the number 11 Quiet Side. And she actually hooked up with the horse that we just talked about, Simply Joking, in the Fantasy, both of their final preps for that Kentucky Oaks. And they put on quite a show this day as they dueled to the wire, hooking up early. An exciting race to watch, Mike. Quiet Side does assert herself at the very end here. I will say, between these two fillies, Simply Joking is the one that gives me confidence that sprinting or racing around one turn is going to be what's going to work for her moving forward. I do wonder if this might just be a starting point for Quiet Side to eventually stretch out again, because she is a horse who did run well going longer in a few of her prior starts. So we'll see what we get from her here, but she certainly has the talent to hang with a field like this.
I agree. I ultimately came to the same conclusion you did as far as the distance goes. But, I did take a long look at this horse, especially because, David, her debut sprinting was a really good effort. The only other time they sprinted her was the spin away, and she ran really well in that race too.
She did,
even though she was only second best. So I don't know, maybe this is going to be good for her as well. And another one, I want to wait and see how they bet it. I mean, she's half the price of Simply Joking on the morning line. I don't know if that's how they bet the race, then I would just rather have the 10, but I'm not convinced they're going to bet the race that way.
Yeah, especially given the workouts on these respective horses. I could see those prices flip-flopping on those two. The number 12, Vodka with a Twist, well, she shows the power of a turnback, because she's a horse that they tried to stretch out over the winter last year and through the fall of her 2-year-old season, and they finally turned her back in the Leslie's Lady at Churchill Downs earlier this year, and she ran the fastest buyer of her career, finishing second to subsequent Grade 1 winner Keeneland. Since then, Mike, she's run a couple of nice races sprinting on the dirt. I can't really get too excited about either of her last 2 performances. I think she's gotten some pretty good trips, hasn't quite finished off those races. So to me, she's going to have to find a way to take another step forward at this stage of her career.
Me too. And I listen, they're coming back in 2 weeks for this race as well. And I know that, she was facing some older horses in that last one, but a 3-year-old won the race. So I'm not going to give her any kind of big excuse for that. She's okay. I just don't think that she's that good. And I think this is a really tough race for her.
Let's get to our picks for this Raven run. And Mike, where are you going to land in this large, wide open field?
I looked at it for a long time. I do think the strength of this race is all toward the outside. I see you probably have a little bit of a different opinion there, but I think the strength's outside in this race, David. I took a long look at Simply Joking and thought about picking her on top, but I'm just going to stick with Ragtime. I do think that she's the best horse in this race, and I'm going to take her just mostly because I'm not convinced Simply Joking is going to be some kind of super interesting price that I won't be able to resist.
Yeah, I've got respect for Ragtime. I'm a little concerned that she's been the beneficiary of some good trips recently, but I do respect her talent coming in here. I will say I would have put Delightful Claire on top if the post positions were switched and she had been drawn outside. I don't love the rail for her, but she could be a decent price in here. I just think Simply Joking might be sitting on a good effort coming off the layoff. I like the way she's trading into this, and I do believe the turn back and distance will work for her. 10-1, 9-5 for me, and 9-10, 8-11 for Mike in the DRF Saturday race of the day, the Grade 2 Raven run. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.